The only thing I hate more than writing a resume is rewriting a resume. Ugh. Unemployment is a thing that people have to deal with from time to time. Most people have to deal with it from time to time. Go 4 or 5 years between different places that they've worked at. I work in animation, so your contract's typically up. If you get a year and a bit, that's a pretty long contract. But sometimes it's 6 months, then you're gonna be looking for work, so you're jumping ship every now and again. And usually you can go from one thing to the next, but every now and again you end up in a situation like I am now, where I finished my last contract a week before Christmas. It's always nice. And then nobody's got nothing until March. And late March is what I hear from most of them. So it's either I completely retrain for a different position, which is painful and and also the position has to exist first, right? It's not like you can just be like, oh, I'm just gonna go do this now. Well, there's no openings in that position anyway either. So, and then there's gonna be a pay drop, significant, potentially significant, most likely significant. So, but I am looking around for other things and just, I don't know, man. It's just no fun, right? It's like the most disheartening thing you could ever. People talk about getting depressed about stuff, and this depresses the shit out of me. I don't want. It's painful, and I think it goes back. I probably need a psychologist. It goes back. You talk about things that dig up old feelings from back in your past, and this is definitely one of them. This fills me with dread every time I have to look at this shit and trying to figure it out, and it's very annoying. And you can't help but feel like a loser, especially if you're a fruity idiot artist like me. I don't have a degree in anything. I have life experience, but that doesn't go well on you're a graduate of the School of Hard Knocks, some kind of bullshit like that. Not that I went to any School of Hard Knocks in any way, shape, or form, but such fun. I had to get my daughter to send me her resume so that I had something to work off of. Hers looks very impressive. It's very well done. It's helpful for her. She has at the top of her thing, underneath her name and address and whatnot, email address rather, she has this nice little letters, MBA candidate, because she's working through her MBA program right now. So that immediately just makes me go, mine looks like shit, because it is shit for the most part. It's garbage. This animation studio, that animation studio, this animation studio, that animation studio. And the timelines are very small. Like just a huge list of the last 15 years. In the meantime, she's got, what has she got? She's got 1, 2, 3, 4. She has 4 listings of jobs. And she's in her early 30s. And her jobs are, well, that one's just a cheap one. That was 1 year. But then she was 6 years at one place, right? And then that's actually still the same place. It just changed names for another 2 years. And then she started having babies. So, yeah, it's really annoying. I like interviews. I'm good at interviews. I can do the interview. If I get the interview, I'll probably, if I'm not completely horribly underqualified, I'll get the job more often than not. But that's if you get the interview. So, and it's very difficult because for me especially, I end up getting into this, you get into this headspace of undervaluing your own abilities, or even not being able to see your own abilities. It's all very, there's this, I'm sure it's weird, goofy childhood stuff or just things I've never figured out. That's the problem with, it's the problem with, well, humanity in general. We all start out blank. Our hard drives aren't enough anything on them, right? We've got like a base operating system, essentially, which is kind of like, yes, your temperament, that's your personality. When that changes and gets, moved around as you get older. But everybody starts with a hard drive that's completely empty, and then you got to learn stuff and get filled up, and and then when those things, that's like adding apps and programs. Well, those things end up getting, some of them become, aged out, and they stop being useful, and they get shoved aside, go through your trash bin, but you still remember them. And then some of them are things that keep getting updated and stay with you forever. And some of them are good for you, and some of them are bad for you, and some of them are just filler. It's difficult. So hard. So silly. Oh, anyway. So I figured I'm trying to do this, and it's driving me crazy. Because it's like you're trying to figure out words, pull up words to differently describe the thing that you've been doing. And it's like, well, there aren't that many words, and I've got a lot of listings of the same job, so I'm just reusing the same words, so it's all really repetitive, and it's like, I hate this shit. I really, really hate it. It's terrible. Oh, so I'm going to distract myself and talk about something else, I think. So they're making a live action version of Snow White, which, I don't know. I wasn't very much like Snow White. Okay, that makes a little more sense. Like all those kind of fairy tales, the Cinderella and those things. I mean, they lend themselves better to a live action version than, say, The Lion King, right? Like, I love that. They're doing a live action Lion King. Yeah, none of it's live. They didn't train lions to talk. They didn't train a baboon to hold a baby lion over top of you know what I mean? Like, these are not alive things. These are still animated. They're computer generated. The entire, I don't think, if there is any footage that is actually shot on a real camera of a real place, I think it's pretty minimal. I'm pretty sure it's pretty minimal. I haven't actually looked into that part, but all of the animals are all just CGI. I mean, even like look at how much stuff is in like any movie. Pick any movie from any time in the last 5 to 10 years. I mean, very few shots don't get some kind of digital tweak. Very few shots don't have like the entire background is not there. You know what I mean? Like, and it's not like way back. And this been the case for 30, 40 years. I mean, there's a shot in Interview with the Vampire while he's riding towards what looks like a plantation house, right? At the beginning, it's the very beginning of the movie. It's a painting. It's not really there. There's a whole bunch of shit in Star Wars, all the Star Wars movies that aren't there. It's in the early Star Wars movie, like the Empire Strikes Back, and like all of it is just, that's not there. So it's when you get to a thing with talking animals and they say live action, I'm like, no, sorry. Like Babe was technically live action, but they didn't teach a pig. They went through a lot of pigs on Babe, apparently. So that's a little bit weird. But then the thing with Snow White, it's kind of like everyone's going up and crazy about on the internet, as the internet does. Peter Dinklage, I guess, was on Mark Maron's podcast, which I haven't listened to yet. I got to listen to the whole podcast. I've only heard the little clip. And he was going on about, they're going to do that again with Dwarves. I guess I haven't been on a soapbox enough or something like that. Like he was complaining that they're going to call them dwarves. So now Disney has said they're not going to be dwarves. It's going to be Snow White and the 7 magical creatures. Okay. How does that... Like, my problem with this whole thing is that, Peter, I love you. I've loved you for a very long time. They're not humans with dwarfism. they're dwarves, as in magical creatures, fairy tale creatures, like fairies or goblins or unicorns. Like, they're not, this isn't, I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, well, these are dwarves and we're going to use human actors with dwarfism to play them. That, I think, is probably, I mean, that would kind of dance on that line of being a little bit, oh, really? We're doing that? You know what I mean? Whereas, like, you look at Lord of the Rings, right? And you got the Gimli, dwarf, but he wasn't a dwarf in terms of a human with dwarfism. He was, what's his face? Look it up. You know who it is. He was a normal, that's a nice word, hey? He was a average-sized human being who was a very good actor, and then they just digitally scaled him down. Just like Gandalf wasn't actually a giant and compared to him. They just shot them differently. So the hobbits were all small. The dwarf was a little bit bigger than, dwarves were bigger than the hobbits. And then the world of man are, you know, regular sized. And then Gandalf was a little bit taller, excluding the hat, but a little bit taller. So I don't know, that was kind of like, okay, come on, dude, you're going a little bit. And it's really, I mean, it's annoying to me just because I love Peter Dinklage. I've loved Peter Dinklage since The Station Agent. Like, I mean, if anyone's seen that movie. And Find Me Guilty. He was arguably one of the best parts of Find Me Guilty. If you've ever seen that movie. That's a movie where Vin Diesel actually acts. Yeah. He doesn't just drive cars off of bridges and have things explode all around him anymore. He actually acts, and he has hair, which is pretty cool. But Peter Dinklage's character in that was tremendous. Like, he was powerful. He captivated every scene that he was in. And yeah, I mean, it was absolutely tremendous. What was the last thing I saw him in? I mean, outside of Game of Thrones was I Care a Lot. I think that's what it's called. I Care a Lot. I think it's an Amazon Prime movie. And he's like a gangster in it. I won't ruin it because it's actually a really good movie. I hate the main character with a passion, and you really, like, this is very much a movie where it's like, wow, these people are awful. And you're like rooting for them to get just completely ruined. But it's a very, very good movie. I would be interested and potentially horrified to find out how accurate or inaccurate the actual technicalities are. I'm not going to do I don't like doing spoiler alert type stuff or anything like that. So if you want to watch it, watch it. If you have Amazon Prime, I Care a Lot is what it's called. But I'll see if you can just quickly take a look here. What's his name? Brad. Come on, damn it. What's your name? Brad, dwarf comedian. I always go with the comedian's opinion first. Not with, sorry, that's the wrong thing to say. I go to the comedian's opinion first, because the comedian's opinion is going to be potentially ridiculous, a little bit off color, but then ultimately, I think, generally a little bit more honest, I feel like. Brad Williams. There we go. Brad Williams, Snow White. Brad Williams weighs in on Peter Dinklage, Snow White.
White hot Brad Williams has joined us because right in the middle of the Peter Dinklage situation, we talked about it in the news. Brad's now sought after.
You know what?
Media darling.
It just made me realize that there needs to be more famous little people out there because because when one of us has anything that's going on in the news, I'm apparently Dwarf Al Sharpton.
Right.
Where
you are.
Everyone has to come to me and be like, well, what's his take on it? And it's just kind of like, I like it. It's a lot of fun, but at the same time, a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
A lot of pressure. And I don't have the Dwarf Al Sharpton hair.
It's also interesting that we've decided as a society that if something happens to an individual, we just find another individual that sort of looks like that person.
Right.
And they could comment on it. Like,
They're an expert.
When I was 12, I looked like Donny Osmond. So if Donny Osmond got into a plane crash, would they come to me for commentary? Like,
Sure.
well, as a white guy who has big teeth and unruly hair, my feelings are like, we do it with black people. It's like when they interview Jussie Smollett, like, who's going to interview him? We have to find a black person.
Joy Reid.
Yeah, like we have to find a black person, a woman, a thing, a dwarf. Like it's a flaw. First off, that's not really journalism.
No.
There was this fat guy wants to give an interview. We need a heifer. We need a fat guy to.
Louis Anderson passed away.
No pun intended.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we got to find Ralphie May. Oh, he's already dead. Ah, crap.
John Candy?
All right. Crap. Like, you just have to keep going down.
It's a weird, flawed premise that I've never really signed off on.
But I'm glad Brad is benefiting from it.
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
What I heard he said, I listened to him on the podcast. He was on the Marin podcast when he said the thing that blew up on social media. It was strange because I in a way, I agree with him and I disagree with him at the same time.
This is what he said. Literally, he's talking about West Side Story. Breakout star Rachel Zegler is supposed to play Snow White. She's Latina. It says, literally no offense to anyone, but I was a little taken aback that they were very proud to cast a Latina actress as Snow White, but you're still telling the story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Take a step back and look at what you're doing there. It makes no sense to me. You're progressive in one way, but then you're still making that fucking backwards story about seven dwarves living in a cave together. What the fuck are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough.
I mean, there's the easy joke of, well, we didn't see you on the soapbox, Peter.
It's true.
But it's this weird thing where he's saying, like, oh, it's bad that we're still doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, so he doesn't necessarily want that. But as little people actors, it's like, well, we kind of want to work. We kind of want that part. And if that's what's available, then that's what we'd like to do. But at the same time, I get what he's saying. Because, yeah, people are like, well, was it that bad? I go, yeah, because at the time, dwarves really didn't have any representation. So would you say, oh, that my friend's a dwarf, the Rolodex in people's heads goes right to Snow White.
Happy,
and they go
grumpy,
like,
sleepy, dopey, sneezy, bashful doc.
Wow.
Yeah.
all right. That's a hidden
I
talent
don't know.
that I didn't know that you had. Wow.
I'm a fan of the Disney catalog.
I feel like it's that time at the bar where like you see your girlfriend fit her whole fist in her mouth and you just kind of look at her
Wow.
like, when did that come up? When?
Yeah.
How come you didn't tell me you had this talent?
Honey, that was before us.
Oh, that was before you. Okay.
I'm a little distracted right
Yeah. Yeah, I would have to agree. Like, on the one hand, yeah, he's got a point. Like, on the one hand, the dwarfs didn't have any representation in movies and things. Okay, yeah, fair enough. A lot of people didn't have representation in movies and things for lots and lots of years, and for lots and lots of reasons. Let's be honest with that, right? But I still end up going back to it's not a human with dwarfism. They're dwarves. They're magical creatures. So, you know what I mean? Like, if Peter Dinklage hadn't said anything about it, and they still went with the, okay, they're still called dwarves, and then they decided to not use little people actors, and to just use, whoever they found, and then just digitally made them smaller or whatever, then they would be outraged about that. It's like no one's, you know what I mean? So it's just a little bit, I don't know, like if you're doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, then you're doing Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, right? That's the story. I mean, it's how the fuck old is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs? Like, when was that written? When? This is literally the only thing that Google is good for. When was Snow White written? 1812. I'm actually surprised. I would have thought it was a little bit older than that, to be honest. The original story of Snow White is taken from a 19th century German fairy tale or folk tale, written by the Brothers Grimm, of course. I thought it was a lot earlier than that. That's barely, interesting. Yeah. Well, then it's like the thing he said, you're being progressive, quote unquote progressive on one hand, and then not progressive on the other hand. That's the story of all fucking corporate entities that are in the public eye that want to make money still. Like, they're very close to politicians in that they stick their finger in the air and see which way the opinion is blowing, and half the time, unfortunately, they stick their finger in the Twitter air. I mean, Twitter's just a fucking crazy cesspool, weirdly. I mean, it's not useful. I barely do anything on Twitter. Anything I post on Twitter is going to be either self-promotional stuff for comedy shows or something silly, more often than not. And even when I post something that someone could take as quote-unquote serious, I generally have some kind of little blurb in the thing, either making fun of it or, just trying to say, this is just something I thought was interesting. I'm never trying to make anybody angry with anything that I do. I'm never trying to convince you of anything. I'm just, that's interesting. That's interesting, because interesting things are the most, why the fuck would you do anything in life that wasn't interesting? The only time you do anything that's not interesting is because you have to, right? If it's not interesting to you, then you naturally don't want to do it. It's something you have to do, which takes me back to this fucking resume. I don't want to do it. I'm not interested in doing it. If a friend of mine came to me with their resume and was saying, I need help putting together my resume, I'd be all for it. Why? Because of the resume? No, because it was my friend, because I want to help. And I like helping. I like helping people. I like people in general. I don't like doing this thing or that thing necessarily for myself. I'm the worst. I posted some stuff on Instagram and whatever this last 2 days ago, because I'm trying to work on being more self-promotive. I'm trying to engage my inner Alex McKenzie. And if you don't know who Alex McKenzie is, you can look him up on the YouTube. Alex McKenzie, comedian. He's local to Vancouver now. But the guy is the most impossibly hardworking. He drives me. I don't understand him. He had a 6-figure job, I think, as an engineer. Quit, sold everything, bought an RV, and decided to embark on the comedian life. Which is, let's be honest, that's fucking crazy. Alex McKenzie. You can find him on YouTube. He's got loads of stuff up. Really, really nice guy. Fucking unbelievable hard worker. I cannot understand. It's astonishing how focused and how good he is at actually. It's self-promoting. I mean, he bought a fucking RV and he put his name on the side of it. He's not famous. He's not Bert Kreischer. He's him. He just bought an RV, put his name on the side of it, and he's fucking driving around. He's doing little gigs here and there and everywhere. I mean, it's crazy. He's crazy, but in the best way possible, I guess. He's really good. Yeah. Anyway, so Snow White. It's really funny because my granddaughter is all into the princesses right now on the Disney Plus channel. And it's Sleeping Beauty over and over and over again. Mostly because Sleeping Beauty, when they have the picture for Sleeping Beauty, I think she's wearing a pink dress on the box. Yeah, she's got a pink dress on the box. And then in the actual film, I don't think she's ever wearing pink ever. She has a blue dress in the film, or a beige one or whatever. And then it turns blue when she ends up being in the Sleeping Beauty, and even when she's there, but it's funny the correlations you see with children and then things that you remember in your life, because I used to sit in the nighttime on a little black and white TV that was this big, little box TV, and I would sit there and 60 Minutes is on. I'm like, I can just wait through 60 Minutes. 60 Minutes isn't very long. I'm 8. 60 Minutes is an hour, jackass. You know what I mean? And I'd be sitting there thinking, surely it must be over in a second because it's only 60 minutes. And thinking that that's going to change, right? Or the same thing on Saturday mornings when I'm trying to watch TV. And we were in Ontario and we had one of those station identification shift type things where they shared a feed. And it was like, coming up next, I think it was 10 a.m., coming up next, Dungeons and Dragons. And that was the only channel. I had like 2 channels, right? Kids do not understand the struggle today, okay? I had 2 channels that I could actually get on my little double, you had to hit the UHF thing to get into the double-digit channels. And you had your fucking aerial and whatever, and you're putting tinfoil on it and attaching it to the ceiling. every Saturday, without fail, on my black and white TV, thank you, I am that old, there would be, a thing would say, oh, coming up next, Dungeons and Dragons. And I always wanted to watch Dungeons and Dragons because it was really cool, right? And then it'd be like, okay, cool. Every single Saturday, you would get to just about the beginning of the opening credits for Dungeons and Dragons, and the station would change to whatever it was, Buffalo, blah, 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 and it would be bowling. Every Saturday. And yet, every Saturday, I sat there thinking, this time it'll be different. Well, this is my granddaughter sitting there watching the movie over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, expecting she's going to wear a pink dress. Opa, she's going to wear a pink dress. I'm like, I don't think she is, honey. I think that's just on the box. And inevitably get all the way to the end of the movie, and she gets through with the prince, and they're getting married, and she's wearing blue. Actually, I'm not sure if she's wearing blue or white, but I know I'm 99.999% sure she doesn't ever wear pink. But it's on the box. It's on the cover. It's like, you motherfuckers. It's kind of the same. It's so weird. Oh, man. But anyway, Snow White. They're having a Latino lady play Snow White, which is quite funny. Her name is literally Snow White. The whole thing was that her skin was white as snow, which is, no, it isn't. She's just pale because she's from the mountains of Germany, as you would be pale. Oh, whatever. I just thought it was weird. Okay, well, I guess I better finish this thing off. We'll talk to you people another time. Bye.